All right.
So, hello, Ed. Welcome to the Kidi Studios podcast. On this podcast, we talk to entrepreneurs and experts in the kids industry space, where we learn about what they're doing today in the part of the field that they're working on. So, on this podcast, we'll focus on your story, on Librio's story, on the future of personalized storytelling. If you have anything to say about that, we'd love to get your thoughts on it. And on the last part is to give any advice to young entrepreneurs launching something in the kids industry space, and even entrepreneurs who can reflect on other industries that they're working on.
Sounds good. Thanks very much for having me.
Perfect. So just the first question is, can you introduce Librio?
Shall I introduce myself as well a little bit?
Of course.
I'm Ed. I'm from London originally, and I moved to Germany just after university. So I studied languages at university and then moved to Germany. And I have been a startup founder for 21 years now. So this is my 21st year of being a founder, which is kind of scary. It feels like such a dinosaur thing to say. But I started when I was 25. And I was in the domain industry for 10 years, kind of learning my trade of how to run a company. And then once I had kids, then I decided to found Librio, basically for my kids, because I wanted to make something which they could really be proud of when I say what daddy does, you know. So Librio is a personalized book brand. We are based in Zurich in Switzerland. We have 20 personalized books for all sort of occasions, and for kids and for adults. And we've sold 1 million books worldwide. And yeah, we're on a path to making the transition from startup to scale up. So we have been around since 2017. So over 8 years now, and we're beginning to really see how to fashion this thing into a real sustainable scale up company after years of being a scrappy startup.
Yeah, amazing. And today, do you mostly operate in German-speaking markets, or is it roughly equal in all the markets?
It's still a bigger speaking market. We definitely have home advantage here. And that's something I underestimated a little bit as a founder, because I'm from the UK, and one of our biggest competitors is from the UK too. So I just presumed that was going to be a big market for us. But being in the country is actually, I think, something which is really valuable to you. And so we started in Switzerland and gradually moved out, but that circle's getting bigger and bigger now. So last year, every one of our markets that we were active in grew. So that was really cool to see. And because our books are printed on demand, so that's a great part of our business model, that essentially, if we want to attack a new market, we don't need to pre-produce stuff and then go and ship it over to the US, hope that people buy it. It's really, we have to connect and print it via an API, and then we can just print in the US immediately. So it makes it geographic expansion is something which is a key part of our strategy.
Okay, interesting. And I was asking, is Germany, for example, Germany growing faster than other markets for you?
Yeah. And they're all growing pretty fast at the moment. So we're in a really good growth phase at the moment. They're all growing fast. But from what we can tell, we're the number one in Germany.
Amazing! Congrats.
Thanks.
And so, how are you able to manage, selling books in a language that's not your main language? How can you judge whether this is a good book in this culture?
That's a very good question, and it's something which I think culture is a good thing to mention, because it is astonishing how different how different children's books look among cultures. Like an English book looks noticeably different to a German book. And that's something we've often questioned, how applicable are our books to each market? What we've seen is actually, so our main illustrator is actually also from the UK. He's Northern Irish. So we were a bit worried that our books would look too English for the dark market. And now we're a bit worried that maybe they look too dark for the English speaking market. So I think maybe the fact that kind of culture is sort of transcending individual sort of geographies nowadays, that people are sort of made aware of different types of illustration more readily than in the past. But we haven't really seen any kind of barrier to being able to sell books across different territories, to be honest.
Okay, nice. And what was the first book you published?
I don't have it with me, but the first book I published. So the genesis story was really that I wanted to make a book for my daughter, and I reached out to Nick, who's our lead illustrator, the guy from Northern Ireland, and wanted him to make one book for my daughter. That was kind of the original concept for Librio. And then it kind of grew into something which is now, like I said, we sold 1 million worldwide. So it's turned from a book of one to real scale, which is really cool. The first book we made, and this was a learning for us as well, is like we wanted to make the most beautiful personalized book out there. And so we made a book which was about a forest which was losing its color, and the child had to go into the forest and help the forest animals to kind of regain the color in the forest. Which, funnily enough, if you go to AI, if you go to a Gen AI model and say, make me a book about like a children's book, I guarantee one of the 5 options will be a kid goes into a forest and helps an animal. It's really funny. I guess this was obviously way before Gen AI. This was in 2017.
Yeah.
It's like a very uniform theme, I guess. And you showed me one of your books that's coming. It's also like going into a forest. So it was all about. It was actually we had a bit of a kind of environmental touch to it as well. It was kind of talking about like how important forests are for animals and stuff. So that was our first book, and what we learned from that quite quickly is that the product doesn't. However beautiful a product is, it needs a different USP more than just being a nice thing to be able to sell it. And that was a big learning for us, that just making the most beautiful books doesn't equate to commercial success. Which is something which I learned. So the 10 years before doing Librio, I was in B2B, and I learned pretty quickly in D2C that it's like you have to really have an event or a USP like specific to the gift giver or the gift receiver, more than this is just a nice thing. That was a big learning.
So when you say USP, is it like the values that your stories are based on? Like when you read a Libro story, you can see like that emotion, that value that you're trying to bring, right?
Yeah, so we found it's values, but it's also relationship between the characters in the product, or the relationship between the gifter and the giftee is a really important one. So we've done a lot of relationship books where it's about like 2 kids together, so you can give it to your best friend or you can give it to your cousin, whatever. We've also done books for parent and kids relationships. So I'll tell you, I do have this one. So like a daddy and their son. And something which kind of really sort of makes them really like warm when they read it. You know, it's like a very emotional feeling when they read it. And our second book, which actually taught us a lot about the industry, was also this one, which is it's in German. So we do it in 30+ languages. Our book, so we have a lot of different languages. And this one, like when you look at this, you know 100% what it is. You can put an ad on Google on the little box there, and you can see it. You know what it is immediately. And so that was the USP for that one, was just also realizing that it needs to, from looking at the cover, you need to know what the product is. And if you like, I mean, I don't have my first book, but if you look at the first book, I actually specifically said that was my first book. We kind of saw ourselves as a boutique publisher that also did personalization. You know, I want to make like a beautiful children's book, and I specifically said I don't want the name to be big and visible on the cover because I found it too kind of cheesy to put. So the first book, the name is really, really tiny, and you can't really see it's a personalized thing. And then when we had this on there with the name on it, we suddenly realized you have to be able to see the name on the cover.
And so when did the click happen between making the book for your child and then like transferring it into, you know, like a full-on company and starting to sell? Like when did that click happen?
It took about 2 years actually to kind of. So I was given this book when she was 6 months. And I remember going to bed that night and just like spending a sleepless night thinking, oh, I can, it'd be really cool. I think even at that point, I was thinking kind of in a company setup, but like, and I was in like I said, I was in a startup that was doing like pretty well at the time. And I didn't have the guts to say, okay, I'm just going to throw in the towel and start up this children's book company. So it took me 2 years between the first book being received and like being brave enough to say, okay, I'm going to quit my current very safe job and go to this insane thing. And you know, you're from Switzerland, and being in Switzerland, because the cost of living is so high, it's much harder to just take the plunge and say, okay, I'm gonna have no salary for the next 2 years. You know, so that was very risky. And I think that in hindsight, if I'd known what that would have entailed, I probably wouldn't have done it, not because I regret it, but just because I couldn't believe it would be possible to be where we are now after that. So it really took 2 years of just constantly ruminating on it and just thinking about how it would be, and then eventually just taking the plunge. It was actually when I had my second child that I was like, okay, now I remember actually I took the decision holding my 6-week son, like in the middle of the night, I was holding my 6-week-old son. I was like, I'm going to do this.
Amazing.
Probably like sleep deprived, sleep
Yeah.
deprived and delirious.
Yeah. So when you made that book for your child was how old? And today I know you're focused more on a younger audience.
So she was 3 when we launched it in the end. So we launched in November 2017. So she was nearly 3. And that was actually like, I think we underestimated actually how powerful personalization is for the child to see themselves in the book. And I remember that I have a deep love for children's books. So even before Librio came into my mind, and like children's books were just everywhere in our house. And I remember at that time when she was 2.5, 3, she was very wibbly wobbly. When I was reading a story on the bed with her, and she was just like turning around the whole time. And then the Librio book came, and she sat completely still throughout the entire book. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it now, but I suddenly realized, oh my God, this is something really magical for her. And she couldn't believe that she was in the book. You know, it was so cool to see. So she was 3. Like you say, our target age is generally 2 to 5. Although we make books which are suitable for up to 8, 9. My son is now 9.
Nice.
He still loves reading the books. And I remember telling you the last time we spoke, the issue for us is that because it's a gift that's ordered online and not ordered in the book or not bought in the bookshop, it's not so much that the uncle or the grandparent or whatever browses in the bookshop and says, oh, that's a nice thing. Generally, we find like from 0 to 4, the adult decides what to give the child, and then from 5 upwards, they say, I want the Paw Patrol this, or I want this and that. And they direct the gifter to what they want, even though they would love our books. That's a really interesting dynamic we see, that we kind of have to aim at that segment, because that's the segment that the adult decides what to give. But our books are certainly appreciated by, I mean, even my 12-year-old daughter still loves them.
Yeah, of course. And would you say for younger kids, the fact that they can see from what age do they start recognizing themselves in the book?
I would say from 1.5 to 2. I know that firsthand because my son was around 2 when we so he was just about 2 when we launched, and he really enjoyed seeing himself in the book as well. No, sorry, he was 1.5. So when we launched this book when he was 2.5, and he certainly interacted. Like, you could say that's you, and he would point to him. Is like, where are you? And he would point to himself. So I remember from about 2 probably. Although we do make a lot of books for 1-year-olds, and we get really good feedback from that as well. So nice. I think it's really you hear that babies are so like kind of ego, like the world is just them essentially. And so if you can say this is you, I think they can really relate to it.
So that's where I was getting to. Why do you think this personalization resonates so deeply with like now we're talking about kids at a young age, but it's basically kids at all ages.
Well, you say all ages, and it's right, because actually if you give a book to an adult, they also sort of, you know, it's like, I guess it's just something about the name, because it's funny enough, I think even the appearance of the child is not that important. I think that just having the name and just saying, this is yours, Artur, is like immediately, we had a funny thing where we spoke to a bookshop in Switzerland, and we made a book for all of the people that were in the meeting. So we kind of researched who was in the meeting and what they looked like, and we made books for all of them. And these were like 40, 50-year-olds, and they were all so excited to have a book with their name on. I guess it's just a human thing that it's like the name is such a part of your identity that as soon as you can kind of connect to that. But it is, what's super interesting is that actually when we started Librio, we were convinced that personalization could also help develop a love of books and literacy. And so from day one, we've actually always contributed 1% of our revenue to literacy projects, and supporting social and environmental causes. And back in 2017, we also worked with the National Literacy Trust in the UK to do research into is there a connection between personalization and love of books. And the outcome of the research was it seems like yes, but all the projects all the research projects have been 10 children, 20 children, kind of very small. And then we had one of our colleagues, Patricia, was studying psychology while working at Librio, and she said, can I use a Librio book to do a research into this? and she actually did the biggest research into personalization and literacy that we know ever existed. So it's really cool that it was with Librio, and she did it with 75 kindergarten kids, and she found that in general there was definitely, they could recall more of the book. They had a better memory of what happened in the book if it was a person's book. And specifically for children of color who are not represented so often in books, it was markedly more noticeable that they saw themselves more in the book. So there's certainly a real connection to a book when you're featured in it. So.
So this connection was translated through more engagement in the book. Better memory of what happened in the book, right? Which is key for kids that age to practice their memory. So were these the two main benefits that the study revealed?
Yeah, exactly that. And what was also interesting was that I remember not in that study, but in a separate study, we saw that the parents are also more engaged in the book. And obviously, if a parent is more engaged in reading, that the child more engaged in reading. So it's a very nice kind of world to be involved in, to know that you're making kids more engaged. And like the one of the thoughts I always had at the beginning was, I'm sure you also remember, like when you were young, you probably had some favorite children's books that you just read all the time. You probably remember. Like for me, it was The Enormous Crocodile by Roald Dahl. I just look at the pictures all the time, and I thought that like it's going to be so cool that there's a million kids around the world who, for many of them, this is going to be one of the books that they say, I remember that book. So it's such an amazing thing to think of. Like in 30, 40 years, people are going to be talking about that.
No, it's amazing. And how are you able to like get kids to continually get a few personalized books rather than just one? Like, do you have any strategy to?
That's the $1 million question. So I know from talking to other personalized brands in the space, it is a difficulty. So the whole genesis of Librio was, I was given a personalized book for my daughter, which I thought was fun, but I hated to read. As a parent, I didn't ever want to read it a second time, because it didn't engage me at all as the reader. And that's what I was saying earlier, like the reader needs to be engaged too. And something we've seen across a lot of the competition is that they make personalized products which just happen to be in the format of a book. You know, it's just like, here's something with your name on it. What the content is kind of secondary. And we went from a different angle, which was, here's a really cool book which happens to have your name on it. And so we do have good repeat purchase rates, and we're really working on improving those. I think the only way you can really do it is to make the books so engaging that people want to buy more of them. And it's really funny, actually. We moved, and we can see I live in the mountains in Switzerland. And we moved to this little mountain village with 2,000 people in it, and somebody had bought this book for their kids, not knowing that it was us. And when we told them that we were that company, they were like, I had to read that book every night for 2 years. I just found it really funny that like it is like the favorite book of the child. So I think that unless we completely turn people off by having to read it too many times, we really focus on making engaging, fun products for both child and adult to read, and that I think it gives the biggest chance of a repeat purchase.
And which book is your best seller today?
Today it's a mixture of these two. So so this one is when you're the adult giving it to the kid. And this one is just like this one that I wrote personally for my children. And it's really kind of a heartfelt love letter from a dad to his kid or to his kids. And it makes me very, very happy that like I wrote it for my kids, and it's brought we sold it over 150,000 times worldwide, and it's just like really cool. It's something which brings a lot of joy to people, and often the reviews are just talking about how the dad's crying with joy and it's really, we kind of make people cry for a living, which is kind of cool. With joy, that is, in a good way.
Well, I got one myself.
Cool.
I haven't given it to my dad yet.
Oh, really nice.
But reading it before giving it to him, like you do feel that emotion. It's like it's a very, like anything that touches family, it's always gives a bit of emotion.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, there's a very funny story about that. Basically, when I wrote it in 2020, 2021, and that was kind of COVID time where we didn't have meetings, and so we just had all the meetings were on Google Meet. And I said, okay, I said to the whole team, it was like a team of 15 or so at the time, I've got this new book and I'm going to read it out to you. And I went, and it was kind of like a me sketching in a Google Sheets. It was not in Sheets, it was in like a PowerPoint basically. And it was very rudimentary, but the words were already kind of fixed. And I'd always said that when I set out to write the book, I tried to think of all the things that make me laugh and cry, like all the things which are very true to me. Yeah. And I got about halfway through the book and I started like uncontrollably sobbing because I never really read it to anybody, and I was like crying my eyes out. Yeah. I was like, this is so lame for the CEO. But when I finished the book, I kind of I looked up again at the screen, and like half the company were kind of like, but this is going to be a very powerful book for us. So it came from such a place of kind of passion and love that it's really cool that it turned into such a hit for us.
Yeah. Well, what I think it does really well is that it summarizes really the key moments of the child.
Yeah.
Right? Throughout his growth.
Yeah.
That little child, the care is taken care of, the messing with everything in the house, all the way until the teenage years where things get complicated, which I think most people do have, right, this point. I don't know what it's called in English, but I think that's what resonates really.
Yeah. What was really interesting is that, so you can see at the start of the book, it starts with like the child being born, and then as you say, like towards the end, the child becomes a teenager, and hang on, let me see. So you kind of have the kind of the evolution of man, and they become a teenager. And what was interesting is that I was writing it from the perspective of I had a 1 or 2 year old at home, and Nick, who's the illustrator, he had a 14, 15-year-old at home. Okay. And so we were looking at both ends of the spectrum. And he said when he got to the point where he had to draw, so at this point it says that you're going to leave home at some point. And when he got to that point, he was illustrating that. He was like, I started crying uncontrollably because his son was just about to move out, you know. So it was like, it was really, really interesting. And I'm just going to show you one other funny thing is that we have this one page where we say that the dad is the funniest person on earth for the kid. And then, like, as the kind of counterpoint of that is later in the book, we say I'm no longer the funniest person on earth for you. And actually, I think we have that as an illustration. And we had this. Nick and I had this very. Oh, here's the dad trying to make him laugh again, and he's kind of like, and we had this realization that you, as the father, you don't change. Like from the age of 5 to the age of 15. You say pretty much that you find the same things funny. You find that you make the same jokes, but for the kids, like, you go from funniest person on earth to just like super depressing. And it was like a very kind of sad realization for us. It's like, oh no, we're becoming sad old dads. But no, in general, it was a really fun book to make.
Yeah. And I think that explains the success, the fact that it resonates. And would you say? What a lot of people talk about, like the strongest part of marketing is word of mouth. Obviously, your products have this emotional touch to it. Do you think word of mouth played a key role in your product?
Definitely. So when we do customer surveys, we find it's around 20% of purchases come from friends and family and people who've seen the book. We also say that each book is kind of a marketing, like just this sitting on someone's kitchen table or something, or bedside table or whatever. It's a kind of marketing tool in itself, and that's difficult to track, obviously. But yeah, and that's why, again, going back to the repeat purchase rate, just focusing on quality and making it a really good product. If you have a kind of crappy product, then it's unlikely to generate further sales. But just sitting around it in itself, it does a job as a marketing tool.
Okay. And your product, how do you optimize it for parents? Like, do you optimize it more for parents, right? I guess because marketing touches more parents than kids. And what strategy to make this optimization are the main practices?
How do you mean optimize it?
Like in terms of marketing, like maybe like for example here having the names of the whole family, like it's direct, straight to the point, right? Are there any best practices that you can see that touches like what parents want? Are looking for?
Yeah, I think so. One aspect we haven't really talked about, we talked about the 1% donation that we make of revenue, and we print everything on recycled paper, 100% recycled paper, 100% recycled. So we try and put messaging out there which really kind of engages kind of the modern consumer, let's say.
Yeah.
So like in terms of that, we try to make it attractive in terms of the way we produce things. And when it comes to messaging, most of the messaging we do is kind of solidifying this link between the gifter and the giftee, and just saying this is a gift which because essentially every gift giver wants to be kind of the most unique, the best gift giver. It's like after Christmas, you want the kid to say, Uncle Artur's was the coolest gift that I got. And so we really try and like make people aware that this is like something super unique and something really special and memorable. Really, I think that's an important angle.
Okay. And have you seen? So when was it that when did you start? What year was it that you started Librio?
2017.
2017. Has there been a shift in any, like in parents, the way parents expect expectations on kids' content over these past few years, pre-COVID, post-COVID, early AI times?
Yeah, not that I can see. I guess we're going to talk about AI in a little while. Other than that, I don't think so. No, not that we've seen.
Okay. And in terms of personalized storytelling, were there any best practices that you've identified throughout your journey?
Other than making them as enjoyable as possible, I think that's really like a major takeaway for us. Is that it needs to be something that's engaging for the reader. Is such an important part of it. It's not just a gift for the child; it's a gift for the child and the adult that's going to read it with them.
Yeah. So it's like maximizing that emotional hit.
Yeah. Not even just emotional, but also fun. It should be engaging, like a fun thing. And we released last year a book for siblings, so like for older sibling to give to their younger sibling.
Yeah. And
that was really fun because my 12-year-old daughter then read it to my 9-year-old son, and that was really cool as well to see how, because that one's quite jokey and quite, because I'm one of 4 kids.
Yeah.
But a younger sister, and I kind of wrote it with the idea of being I'm the older brother and she's the younger sister, and how we were as kids. So it was quite tongue in cheek and a little bit kind of, I don't know, like kind of a little bit playing with each other, and the kids really enjoyed it.
Nice. Yeah. No, from my experience, it's really important to try to hit either the fun, the emotion, like the nail on the head. It's very important in the industry. And so a bit about the philanthropy you've done. So it's been a core part quite early on in your journey.
From day one, actually.
From day one, which most people start doing it afterwards.
Yeah.
What was the main reason for it? And what is the most how do I say your favorite part of the philanthropy, like your favorite project in it?
I'll tell you the favorite project. I'll also tell you the biggest learning from it. So, so I was trying to recall. Was there a point where I decided that was going to be a part of it? I think it was always going to be the case. At the time, I think Tom's shoes, where they give one pair of shoes for every pair that they sell. That was, I don't know if they're as big as they used to be, but that was very big at the time where I was setting up the company, and we just had this kind of one-for-one vision where we just said, okay, for every book that we sell, we give a book to somebody. And I remember at the beginning, the kind of business strategy was done with Tim, my CMO and co-founder. I remember we were in a cafe and I said, I want to do like a Tom's thing. He was like, cool. And so it was always just like, that's what we do. So, and in the beginning, we worked with a bunch of different charities. So we worked with a charity in the country of the sale. So basically, if we sold a book in England, we worked with an English charity. If we sold a book in Germany, and that was as complicated as it sounds. And it was also very difficult messaging because we said, okay, in the UK, we donate £1 for every book, and in Germany, we donate €1. And so in 2018, we switched to supporting Room to Read, which is a national, it's a international literacy organization. And what I really liked about them was it was founded by an ex-Microsoft exec, and so he kind of built up the charity as if it was a startup in a way. So it was much more kind of accountable and much more kind of flexible than a kind of traditional charity, which is generally very slow moving and quite sort of doesn't put the money that they raise to the best use. And so we worked with Room to Read, and we again said we donate one unit of currency for each. So it was £1, £1 franc, €1. And they said that like the way they message it is, if you donate $1, that's what it costs us to put a book in the hands of the child in Sri Lanka or whatever. And so that was the messaging we had for a long time. And by far the best thing we did as part of that was in 2019, we went to Cambodia. So 4 of the 5 founders went to Cambodia. And in a way, it was kind of a bit of diligence on seeing, like, are we with the right charity? And so we just wanted to see what the money was kind of achieving. And that was 3 or 4 amazing days in Cambodia, just to see the smile on the children's faces. And what they do differently is there are charities which kind of take books from the US and just dump them in Africa and say, here are some books, you know, like, I mean, talking about what we were talking about earlier about the cultural relevance, you know, it's like, if we talk about England and Germany being different, like Sri Lanka and America is insanely different. And what I loved about Room to Read is that they work with local authors and illustrators to make books specifically for each market that they're in. And they set up school libraries. So they basically, they go into a school, they set up a library, the kids can take the books out of the library, but they have an agreement that after a certain number of years, the school needs to be self-sufficient. So it's like, we'll come in, we'll teach you how to do it, and then we'll go out again, and you keep everything up. But it's a very much kind of self-serving model, and we just really liked the approach that they had. So we went to Cambodia and saw what they did, and we also saw they have 2 programs. They have a literacy program and they have a girls' education program. And the girls' education program was also absolutely amazing to see just how confident these girls were, and they knew that education was their way out of poverty, and just the engagement that they had was amazing. I remember saying, like, if my daughter is that engaged in school when she's 40, I'm going to be so happy, because kind of the feeling I have of European kids in school, like a teenager, very bashful and not willing to put their hand up and everything. And these girls were amazing. They were all so engaged. It was so cool. That was really, really amazing. And the biggest learning we had from it was, doesn't sound like very much when you sell your products for 40 or 50 bucks. But when you look at it, it's actually like a big percentage of your top line revenue. And we had to walk back from that in 2021, where we found post-COVID, we had a very difficult year. Like most e-commerce companies had a very difficult year. And we just found, like, dedicating, it was like 3% of our top line revenue donating it to charity would almost put us out of business. And so we kind of reassessed that, and then we looked at what kind of bigger corporations do, and we looked at Patagonia as a kind of the benchmark, and they donate 1% of their revenue, and we said, okay, that's something. Looking at it, it's still a lot of money, but it's something we can continue to do. And so we've changed it now, so it's 1% of our revenue rather than 1 unit of currency, which is also an easier message to say, and it's something we can afford as well. So it's something which in total we've now donated over $350,000 to charity, and like I say, it's something which we never thought about not doing. And when we do customer surveys as well, we do ask, like, to what extent did that play a role in your decision to purchase? And it's 16 to 17% say it contributed to my decision to purchase. I don't know to what extent, but I'd like to think that it's something which is a USP for us, that we really have this philanthropic element as well.
So are you continuing to work with the same NGO organization?
So we continue. Our main donations go to Room to Read, and then we work with Trees for the Future, which is a tree planting organization. The environmental part, we're looking at, like, different options to see what we can do on that side of things. So we donate now, half of our 1% goes to Room to Read, and then the other half goes to environmental organizations. Okay,
amazing. No, it's good to always have values and a mission behind what you do. And so now we're going to shift to the future of personalized storytelling and get your opinion on that. So how do you see children's personalized storytelling evolving in the next few years, in the next decade? Obviously, with AI coming more and more, being more and more present in our daily lives. Or what do you see?
So the next thing, I think personalized storytelling in its current form has kind of only been around for about 10 years. So it would be interesting to see where it goes in 10 years. So I think what's an absolute given is it's here to stay. Like I said, just seeing the connection and just seeing how the kids love it. And I think what's also a given is in this form, it's here to stay. Like in a hard form, solid form. There are a lot of apps now where you can do kind of bedtime stories through AI and just say, okay, I went to the zoo today with the kid, tell me a bedtime story, but you read it on the iPad. And I can see that that can be really fun, and I think that people will do more of that. But I think in a kind of haptic form, having a product is going to stay as well. Actually, we see that in the publishing world in general. And children's publishing is one of the most robust parts of the overall publishing world, because I think people love having a physical book to share with them. And then when it comes to AI and personalization, that's something which is going to be fascinating to see, I guess. So at the moment, we see it as a really interesting opportunity for us to we call it hyper personalization. So to kind of hyper personalize our books. And what we're really looking at is, do we do it like a cartoon, like in the old days? You had the background and then you draw the character on top. And that's kind of how we do it now, but we do it manually. But we're constrained by how many hairstyles we draw, how many skin colors or whatever. So I think there's maybe two stages. So the first stage is taking a solid background book and then putting maybe a photo of a child and putting that child into the book, into the same style as the book. And then when we look at AI book companies, that's what a lot of them are doing right now. So like there's a lot of AI companies springing up, and if you go on their website, you can upload a photo and they put it into a static book, let's say. So a little bit like you do with Atelier. And we see that as being really interesting, because obviously the personalization element is something which takes a long time when it comes to making a book. The difference between what we do and the traditional publishing house does is that we spend more time illustrating all the hairstyles and everything, and that is just very time consuming and constrained by the number of hairstyles. So to be able to offer a character that's in the same style as the book, that looks exactly like that character, that's something that's really engaging, I think. And then the second step is like, can a book be 100% fully personalized, made on demand, based on a prompt? And those exist as well, but I think probably in the next 12 months it will be. So when we first started seeing those books 24 months ago, it was very bumpy. Now they're where they are pretty decent, but still not to the level that we would expect them to be, to kind of be at the same quality standards that we want. And the really big question is, how does the public perceive these products? Products, and that's something which society has not yet figured out. Like, will there be a kind of will there be pushback against them? But that pushback will be short-lived, and then people kind of fall back into like, I'm happy with it, because I can see that happening. That there's so much AI stuff on Instagram now that I'm sure there will be a kind of reaction of, I need something that's made by a human. But I can see that kind of being the initial wave, and then people just it gets so good that it's indistinguishable, that people would then say, okay, it's fine. What we find interesting is that basically an AI personalized book startup can make these fully personalized books with AI, and the moat is not really the technology anymore. AI technology is not a moat for somebody. So it's something which we can be a fast follower in that. If we see that there's a market for it and we see that there's potential there, we can be a fast follower when the tech's ready. But it's insanely unlikely that they can do what we've done, like build up a brand with made products. And so I see it as something that's quite interesting, is that we could kind of have like a human made stable and an AI stable, and you could kind of choose which one you want. And so I think it's an absolute given that like fully personalized, fully AI books are going to be here at some point. There's a question of when and how the people will react to it. So, but I think we're super well positioned to be able to play in both markets. And I think that one of the learnings we have over the last 8 years is that brand and execution are everything, because there have been a lot of other personalized book competitors, and a lot of them don't exist anymore. And so we have a brand, we're good at executing. So I think that we're in a really good place to capture that market as well.
Well, what I've heard from the cartoon industry, which is also thinking a lot about how AI is going to impact them, the way they see things is they see storytelling to be more and more commoditized, because anyone can produce a book, anyone can, like technically in the future, anyone can produce a cartoon. And what differentiates what anyone can do between nice things is that brand, right?
Exactly.
And people have that trust in that brand, or that's built over time, and they still like to have that human aspect, that human guidance in the AI.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point you were touching upon, which I also hear from the cartoon industry, which is
it's good to have that corroborated. But I mean, just when it comes to brand, we've made 1 million sales, we've got 60,000 reviews. You know, you can't mimic that. You know, that's something that you have to build up over time and trust. So I'm pretty confident in the way that we're set up. And what I find really interesting, I actually find it super exciting, the ability to make a hyper personalized book for Enzo, for example. He loves skiing, football, and playing the guitar. So be able to say, here's a book about a boy who loves skiing, football, and playing the guitar, who lives in our village. I find that super exciting. I love the idea of that. But that's not to say this book, which I poured my heart into, is any less valuable. You know. So I think I'm really positive about it. Actually, I think it's going to be
amazing. So the way you see the impact of AI, one, it's something that's interesting. Two, it's something that is going to come sooner or later, and it gives that extra level of personalization that kids can be looking for, like not the whole market, but like part of the market, that hyper personalization.
That's really the question. How much is that part?
And one thing I've been wondering in the personalized book industry is, today most personalized booksellers, you personalize the name and the character, but they haven't yet worked on, like in your case as well, you haven't worked like in the story itself. Why haven't you picked the choice of being also able to personalize inside the story, you know, like a bit book building?
That's a really good question. I think that goes to when you talk about optimizing for the parent or optimizing for the gifter. We have seen other personalized brands where you can really personalize a lot, and you can choose their favorite food and their favorite animal and blah blah. And to make a book takes 10 minutes, whereas to make one of our books takes 2 minutes. And I think when you're playing in the e-commerce field, like anything that's a conversion killer is dangerous. And so there will be some people who want to configure absolutely everything, but I think that's a very small percentage. And so we had a very good learning from our first book where you could choose the eye color, and then we realized that uncles don't know what the eye color of their niece is. I was speaking from experience, because I made one for my niece, and I had to ask my sister what color eyes does she have. So it's a tiny thing, but just that one thing can be a conversion killer for you. And so we now, what's really funny with children's books is that if you look at all children's books, they have black eyes. And when you look at them repeatedly, it gets a little bit freaky that every character has black eyes in a children's book. But we have that now, and we do get a lot of requests for eye color, but we've just seen that's something which we shouldn't offer anymore. So I think to your point, it's purely a pragmatic decision when it comes to e-commerce conversion rate. And that's also something to do with when you think of the AI books in future. If you have to do a prompt and then re-prompt, and then you don't like half the story, like that can also take a long time and cost the company who's generating that book a lot of generation power as well. That's also one of the hurdles that from what we can tell, it costs about $5 to just generate the first iteration of one of these books. And so it's a very expensive process to generate. And from people I've spoken to, they say they don't see the generation cost coming down anytime soon rapidly, because there's such a demand for this computing power. That could be like a big hurdle to these kind of fully generated books as well.
Interesting point. And so now we're going to skip to the final part of the podcast, where we talk about entrepreneurship and mostly advice for founders. So obviously you said that you started, you're an entrepreneur since you're 25. So what advice would you give founders entering the kid space, but even entering any other space? Like, what's that mindset one should have as an entrepreneur? So this is for our younger audience watching.
So it's funny you say I started being an entrepreneur when I was 25, because often you hear podcasts and they say, at age 5 I was already selling whatever in my head. Like, I never had designs on being an entrepreneur. It was never even like a thought until it suddenly happened. It's like, oh, I'm a founder now. So that's one thing that you don't have to have that. I don't think you have to do that from day one to have that entrepreneurial mindset. For me, it's you just need the bravery to believe in yourself, I guess, and just do it. I know it's a little bit too generic, but when I went from my first real job to becoming a co-founder, I remember at the time I was 25. didn't have very much money, but it was really this case of just like, what have I got to lose? You know, it's like, it's, I think the younger you start, the less you have to lose, and the more you can really throw yourself at it. And so like, I would encourage anybody who's like kind of thinking about it, and if you're young enough and you can see, okay, like I can give this 6 months, and then if it doesn't work, I can do something else. That's the leap you have to take, because if you never take that leap, it gets harder and harder as you get older. I can guarantee that, because life gets more complicated as you get older. And I think one thing, I mean, talking of complications, one thing in the kid space, and this may not apply to you so much, but I think having your own kid makes it harder to be an entrepreneur, but B, it allows you to view the space much more like with a lot more clarity, because we were a target audience. At the beginning, I was making products for myself, and we always say that if somebody in our team who has a kid sees a problem they want to solve with a book, that's like the biggest indication of what we should make, rather than market research and stuff. I think it's a funny paradox. I think probably the best kids entrepreneurs are probably people who have kids, but it's much harder. Like there were times when I had 2 kids under 3 setting up a company. I was like, what am I doing to myself? So it was tough, but I think it gives a lot of clarity in the space.
Well, congrats, you pulled through on that tough period of controlling kids and launching your company. You had 3 kids basically.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. I would say one more thing is like I leapt into it with other people. So not Librio, I mean Librio as well. When I was 25, it wasn't like me on my own. I think, and you hear often like, the best founding teams are at least 2, preferably 2. My first 2 companies were actually both founding teams of 5, which was definitely too many. But I think if you've got other people to kind of share that risk with, it makes it a lot less scary, I would say. Okay.
And a lot of young entrepreneurs, they're scared to take a jump because they're scared to fail. What's your response to that? Would you say failing is part of being an entrepreneur, and that's like part of the journey, right?
I was going to say, then you shouldn't do it, because you will fail time and time again. So I think, but it's just your mindset. It's like, I mean, it's such a cliche, but it's like failing is the way that you learn and fail forward or whatever. But it's so true. It's like the number of mistakes we've made, and the number of mistakes, like I say, I'm a dinosaur with 21 years of founder experience, but you just have to look at it as a game. It's like, okay, what am I going to learn from this? And hopefully it won't break you, and it will just make you stronger. So it's like I said, I never thought of being a founder, but I'm somebody who's very competitive and somebody who like likes to figure puzzles out. And I just see this whole thing as a puzzle of how do I do this? And that's a really fun mindset to have. It's just like I want to solve this puzzle as well as I possibly can and better than other people.
And what's that one key mistake that you made early on that you'd avoid today?
Wow, that's very. I don't know, actually, to be perfectly honest. I do think coming from the philanthropic angle, like over donating, I've heard that from a couple of people that said that they've seen companies go out of business being too philanthropic in a way. That was a big learning for us, that it very nearly put the business under. By trying to be too good in a way. But I think I'd do it the other way around. I'd say like the things that really positively help is just like a focus on quality and really bringing value to the customer rather than trying to make a quick buck. And also I mentioned the 50,000 reviews, but I see a lot of companies. So there are a lot of companies that are much bigger than us, not just in our space. And we have more reviews than they do. And I think reviews are such an important aspect of credibility. And we started in month 3, we started gathering reviews, which is why we have like 50, 60,000 now. Like start as soon as you possibly can, because it's never too early to start getting reviews, unless your product's crap and people don't like it. But it's like, and we're also very bold when we send out our reviews. That I think a lot of people if someone writes a nice email to customer service and they say, oh, can you leave us a review? And then you gather 1 or 2 a month or something. We send, unless we have a flag on our customer service tool, which is like very angry customer, whatever, which is like, luckily we're in a space where people are generally very, very friendly and very nice, because it's a nice product. We do have a tag which says, okay, don't ask this person review, because we know it will be a 1-star. And often it's to do with the delivery. It's often to do with something is out of our control. So if DHL loses the package, they give us a 1-star review. That's not really our fault, and we'll give them the money back. We'll do everything we can to make it good. But we send it to basically everybody every single person who bought from us. apart from the ones we know are angry. And that's kind of a risky thing to do because people might not like it. But that's what's allowed us to get to the review volume. And I think that's when we talk about brand and credibility, I think that's a really important thing.
Okay. And what's the main review website that?
So we use reviews.io. So it's a difficult thing because Trustpilot is the review website, but Trustpilot is a horrible company to deal, a really horrible company to deal with. I mean, you hear that from everybody. But if you look on most e-commerce websites, it's a Trustpilot logo on there. So it is a bit of a risk to go with a different one. So we went with reviews because they were significantly cheaper and much more dynamic, and they allowed us to send branded emails. So the review email that you get from Librio looks like it comes from Librio and not from Trustpilot with all the Trustpilot branding and everything. And so we've invested heavily in reviews.io. They're a great team to work with. You need to decide whether you're comfortable with that versus Trustpilot. But what we actually do, what reviews allows you to do is also split some of your review requests to Trustpilot as well. So what we do is when we send our reviews, we send 30% to Trustpilot and 70% to reviews. And so if you look at our Trustpilot, we've got like 800, 900 reviews, I think. And so if you go to Trustpilot, it looks like we are a solid brand as well. So that's also something you can consider doing.
Okay, interesting. So one final question, which is a bit the ritual in the Kidi Studios podcast, is a forward-looking question, and it adapts to each person's industry. So just complete the sentence I'm about to say. The future of personalized book is?
Is it too lame to say exciting? Hey, I'll oh wow. I think honestly, probably AI driven. Let's say that.
Yeah.
High quality AI driven. I may have come to regret that, but I think probably that's, to be perfectly frank, that's probably the direction it's going.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely that future coming. Probably that's the future alongside the beautiful books already existent.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. Well, that's the end of the podcast.
Thank you so much. Really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it a lot.